Of course. Oh my God, you have to be kidding. You guys, we're live and we have some funny technical stuff happening on my end with my lighting. But hey, it's a live show, so maybe this will get us some views getting started. So I am doing this from a new location today, and I didn't have all my lighting just perfect, and now it wants to fall over on me. You guys, what are you going to do, Chris? What are you going to do?
I don't know. I've got dollar store lights on my desk that help.
There you go. I should have gone with the dollar store lights. Who knew? I had to try to be too fancy here. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. It is Eye Opener. So do you have your coffee with you, Chris? Perfect.
Of course. And okay. I've got the Nespresso on standby, too, if I need a shot in the middle of it.
It seems like I'm the one who's going to need the shot since I have these like rogue lights over here.
Oh, no, that's keeping you wide awake.
Yes. So tell me, what are you drinking? What's your coffee of choice?
Oh, whatever comes out of the Keurig. I do enjoy good coffee. I'll stop by LaSalle for those that are local.
Yeah.
And Dunkin'. I mean, I am in the Northeast, but I didn't grow up here. Dunkin' is not my coffee of choice. I'm sorry if that upsets anybody, but I got to live my truth. So,
it might some people, but that's all right. Okay, you guys. I got it.
I won't argue it. If it's there, like if that's my option, sure. I definitely will get a cup. But I think right now the Signature Select from Shaw's Kona blend out of the Keurig is what's in my mug. And then I have the Nespresso over here ready to go for a little pick-me-up if I don't want to actually leave my office and go to my kitchen.
Yeah, you definitely are.
The tall window back here, if that doesn't indicate I'm working from my basement office, then that requires a whole set of stairs to go to my kitchen.
Yeah, we've definitely gotten looking for convenience, right? So we don't convenience in any way like having to go to the kitchen. So I want to give a shout out to New Harvest, which is a local Rhode Island company as well. They're in Pawtucket, I think is where their roastery is. And they have I like my coffee bold with flavor, and it hits the spot. So cheers and good morning to you, Chris. Welcome to Eye Openers. Thanks for being on. I think it's probably appropriate that I give you a proper introduction instead of the one where my lights were falling and I was like totally erratic, but hey, it's all right. So Chris, now we both have Polish surnames, right? But even with that, I struggle to say yours. So can you give us a full name for a second?
Sure. Wilczewski. It's Wilczewski. Easy to say, hard to pronounce.
Yes. Just pretend like I don't see the letters there.
Yeah.
Wilczewski. I've got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, don't look at it. It rolls off the tongue.
It rolls right off the tongue. Yes, definitely. Well, so Chris Wilczewski is the founder and CEO of Functional 3D, a 3D scanning service and consulting company based in Providence. Woo! Shout out to Rhode Island again. The focus of Functional 3D is to bring the value of 3D capture technology without the large upfront cost and time associated with integrating this kind of technology. So I want to hear about that later on. Like I want to hear how you've created something that's distinct from the other 3D scanning offerings in the industry, because that I think is what really helped you kind of launch into the CEO role, if I'm correct there. But it seems so you support a ton of industries, which is when Chris and I spoke before, I found that really fascinating. Like I had no idea there were so many different people looking for this kind of service, from commercial construction, manufacturing, design, historical preservation projects. So really, really interesting stuff. And then prior to owning the firm, you were an engineer and account manager of Faro Technologies. Did I say
Faro,
it?
yes.
Faro. And then when you're not in the office, you have a 3-year-old son, and
last week he's 4.
Oh, 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then you have families across different time zones. I do as well. That is like no feet there to try to stay in touch and feel connected, especially in this past year. So welcome to Eye Openers. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for the invite.
Of course. Anything I skipped out on in your bio that feels like, hey, You got to let the audience know.
I think, we've talked about it before. I think my self-imposed tagline is a nerd with social skills.
Okay.
This kind of generally sums it all up.
I like that. I like that because a lot of the people I work with are just nerds. So I'll appreciate those social skills, but no, nothing against my clients. It's what they come to me for. So tell me, I start out with a banger of a question here just to get things rolling. In 3 years from now, if you and I were to speak and you were so excited to share with me, oh my gosh, this is like what's been happening in the past 3 years, what would you tell me about?
Wow. Yeah. Great question. 3 years. So, I started my firm about a year ago, a little over a year ago now.
Okay.
And I started it with just this really wide, shotgun approach just to 3D capture and scanning and technology. And it has led to some of the most, just stuff I couldn't have dreamed of. I've literally had an hour-long sit-down web call with the director of Judith River Dino Institute. Literally, we talked about scanning in Stegosaurus skeletons, like full-on dinosaur skeletons. The whole purpose of going, taking and changing the way that they make them now. And so the traditional method is taking them, casting them, creating molds from them, all that whole process. Digitizing that whole process, going into 3D printing and all those types of things, for a number of reasons, but that's already happened. And it just connections of connections that just got passed to me, to have that conversation. I've scanned in 14 buildings in Newark. These were low income housing. And it was a project that, the idea is that there's investors, they don't know what's there and they need to know what's there. And that was my part of it, was to scan it in to help the design side put together a plan of what's there. Mm-hmm. And so, everything from dinosaurs to 14 different buildings in Newark that for low income people. And that's already happened. So I think it's kind of hard to say in 3 years, because I don't, we all have to understand our limits and understand when to say no to things. But I really work on saying yes to as much as possible, just because it just it just snowballs to so many different opportunities and connections. And I've scanned in artifacts that were in Newport Harbor from the Revolutionary War.
That's amazing.
From scuttled ships that, so the history, it's so, I think it'd be so difficult for me to say where I would be in 3 years, where I'll be in 3 years, I think, because of that. Let
me ask you differently then.
Sure.
So tell us about awesome projects that you've already done or you're already doing. So that means that you already have a plan for this, right? So when I ask that question, I'm trying to get you to think, like, what's the impossible goal? Like, what's the thing you don't yet know how you're going to get there, but you want to get there?
Gotcha. Oh, wow. The impossible goal. It's for the biggest, the biggest, it's not the impossible one. The short term is just being able to grow to a point where I have other people, doing some of the hands-on work, really being able to offload that so I can continue on the business development, and growth side of things, as opposed to having to be the, for the most part, one-man band. I do have an assistant. I just took on a intern from Iris. Cool. Shout out to IYRS, if not, for those not familiar, and they're down in Newport. That kind of growth and building in that direction is probably the biggest. In 3 years, that's where I really want things to be, where I'm more on the managerial side of things versus the hands-on. Although I like getting my hands dirty, so I have my little 3D printer here.
Oh, awesome.
Printing some stuff off.
Awesome.
Most of the stuff is hung up on 3D print. Sorry, tangent. So
It's really fascinating stuff. I mean, like, I'm glad that you have all that in the background there so people can kind of see like you're actually doing work on something right now. That's pretty cool. So I'm curious if, let's say, not if, when you bring on more of a team and they're able to handle some more of that for you, what becomes possible for you? Like, as the business owner, as the leader, what becomes possible for you when you achieve that?
yeah, so I think spending some more time on some of the pet projects that I really enjoy, that really kind of get me going, that maybe don't have the biggest revenue value. I really love the historical preservation side of things. If that's not obvious so far. Next week, I'm scanning a sea turtle at the Mystic Aquarium because she was hurt in the ocean. That's why she's there. And collaborating with an amazing 3D print shop out of Connecticut, and some of the engineers, design engineers from New Balance, are going to be joining us.
Awesome.
It's this really awesome collaboration, and that's a donation of my time. But obviously, you can only support so much of that when you need to pay bills and grow the company.
Right, totally. And so I love that that's a really important pillar of your work, and that as you grow, that's still important to you and you're still going to make time for that. I think that's so important. I mean, I live in the same community as you, and I love hearing that entrepreneurs are thinking that way, and that they're already willing to contribute in that way. It does a lot for the whole community. So I'm curious though, what do you think were the skills that ended up being really important to get you where you are today? Because you didn't start in this role, like you said, you started a year ago. So tell us a bit about, what were the skills you learned earlier on and how it's served you now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started in sales, business development, consumer sales. One of my first jobs was selling computers at Sears. And I was 17 years old, making commission doing that. That was, the very late 90s, and that small division of computers. And now, is it defunct? Is Sears still around? I don't even know.
I don't even know.
But I always ask people, what are you using it for? What are you trying to accomplish? I still remember back to those days, and that's always been my sales style, is just very respectful. I want to understand what someone's trying to accomplish in order to propose a solution that brings value to them. And that kind of grew with me. And I didn't really understand that until I got into some of the business to business sales roles that I took over the years. Mm-hmm. That there's a big that's not normal. That has to be trained in a lot of people. And so for me, some of the advanced sales trainings that I was able to obtain and were afforded to me based on some of the account development roles and sales roles that I took over the years, really helped me solidify and kind of hone that, and understand, really how to put together respectful, time focused. You don't want to sound like you're coming across wasting anyone's time. You want to, get your reason for either calling or emailing out in front. Why are you there? Why do you want to talk to them? What maybe benefit, what value have you brought other people that are similar? Like, hey, I helped these guys out. I'd love to just learn about what you're doing, and just say that's what it is, right? You just want to learn. You're not throwing anything in front of their face if there's not a fit. So just and for me that speaks volumes to me, because I want to treat people the way I want to be treated. I don't want someone calling me and like this is why I'm calling, or and just wasting my time. I'm like, okay, get to the point. Usually when I answer the phone and it's a sales call, it's like, get to the point. Who are you with? What are you trying to get from me? What do you want to know? The guy came to my front door and he's like, he's like, I'm one of your neighbors. And I'm like, okay. And then he tries talking about spraying for ants, and he's on a little hoverboard. And it's like, what? Dude, get off your hoverboard, stand there, make eye contact. What are you trying to accomplish? No, I'm good. Thank you. Have a great day. Right.
Hopefully he learned something from you.
But it's just, I've found that it's really helped me because I take to people that way. I talk to people that way, and am able to get it to a very concise, few sentences.
Sure.
And you understand why I'm there, what I want, and what it could do for you.
Right.
Because what's happened for other people. So, and that seems to be a really nice way in my mind to get that across. Makes me think of Boiler Room. Did you ever watch that movie?
No.
With Ben Affleck. Why am I blanking? But I'm blanking on the other name. And he answers the phone. It's a telemarketer for newspapers, and he literally is like, "No, this is how you should be opening a call. This is how you should do it." And then the guy repeats it back the way he says to do it. He's like, "Do you want some?" No. He just hangs up.
It just hangs up.
Great movie, wonderful movie. I would definitely recommend it to anybody in business development or sales. There's a whole other twist to it, but there's some great lessons to be learned when it comes to that stuff.
Awesome. Give me 1 second. I am having a mom moment.
Oh, that's okay.
The monitor was still on. For those of you making noises, this is like my day, right? Today, learning about working from home. Still, like 15 months in, I'm still making mistakes. When I think about a sales movie, I think about like Glenn Ross, right? Like, great example how not to do it, what not to focus on.
Yeah.
How not to be a boss. So I'm curious, so you're about a year in, right? And so you came from the sales background. So you had a tremendous amount of experience doing what really I've found a lot of entrepreneurs don't like to do. And a lot of people struggle with that business development side. As you've moved into this role as having to think about all aspects of your company and organization, what breakthroughs have you had? What insights have you already gained that have shifted kind of the way you thought from what you thought it was going to be, or how you thought it was going to play out?
I think. Yeah, great. What's that?
Did I stump you?
No, I was just, something. I'm trying to phrase this in a. The challenges I ran into the most were people that either I'd worked with in the past through other and did some projects or did some work with, expecting it to be a pretty, like we'll have each other's backs because we did in the past, and running into some challenges in that regard, and finding out that a lot of times, or in a few cases, and I'm not, I haven't been in business very long. I've had some issues with the communication, the expectations, miscommunication, missed expectations, and make sure you have the right insurance. That's what I can say. Unfortunately, I already had to make a claim, and it was, as in that regard, it was somebody, it was like, at least let's have a conversation about what happened, and they just were unwilling to back down on their feeling, or so it was just it was a very tough lesson to be learned, and very gratefully it ended up being some equipment that got damaged, and thankfully I had my own, so I did have my own insurance that covered it, even though it wasn't my equipment. Thankfully I did have that, and it covered me. I might not have lasted had that not happened. It was a pretty big chunk of change to have to deal with, and making sure you kind of dot all those I's and cross all those T's, even when it's someone, when you think, if something does go wrong, we'll have a conversation.
Right.
Right. Because, there's just, and that's what insurance is for, right? For, these unforeseen circumstances or scenarios that you get into. But it was something that, just the whole thing just flipped. And so I don't know what was going on with their business. as to what that was, and they weren't willing to share with me, to have an honest conversation, which is what I was, assuming would have been the case should we ever get into that, and it wasn't the case. So don't expect your friends or people that you've worked with in the past necessarily to have your back.
Yeah. Communication is such a major component of everything we do, and like getting an agreement, soliciting an agreement, is such it's a lesson that I see people learning again and again in the work that I do, and I've personally learned again and again in the work in my own business, and it's something we hopefully get better and better at, but I don't think that work is ever done. It's always like finding ways to be more explicit about that, up front, but still like, not scare them off. Like, okay.
And it's difficult to parse a nuanced conversation down to a few words in a line item or in the footer of an estimate or an invoice. It's challenging, but it is worth it. And making sure you're like, no, this is what we have. This is the time I've allotted, or however you're billing. This is what we have to work with.
Yeah, that's challenging for sure. And the way I've seen it kind of people come through successfully is keeping your mind open to always being a student. People who think that they've kind of got it down, or like that shouldn't have happened or whatever, and you're hard on yourself. If you're not learning from these things, if you're not, owning that this happened and here's how we improve, and then improving that system, will happen again and again. So keeping an open mind and just, I think that's the most humbling experience of being a business owner, is that you will have to keep learning.
Probably also a parent too.
Yes. All day long, I make parenting analogies. I try to keep it out of this conversation. But my gosh, no. It's the truth. Yeah. And I say it's because we're all just grown up children trying to figure it out, trying to figure out what we're doing. But the same is true in parenting. And I use this actually specifically with communication. Like, how would you tell a 5-year-old? Well, we speak differently because what we do as adults is we make assumptions about what people know. That's how we get into trouble. Yep. So not focusing on those assumptions and really breaking it down and checking for understanding and, making clarifying statements can all be super helpful with that. So my next question is going to force you to be a little bit open about some of that stuff, which is, what would you say, what would you identify as a weakness, and how are you working on it? How have you found it hold you back, and how are you making it different?
I think to some degree, I think probably I get a little too into the weeds. And being a little too hands-on. What I do is not just my livelihood, but it is something that I really enjoy and I have a passion for, and I love how it all connects together. I hope it comes across in the way that I speak about what I do and how I do it. So as we talked about earlier, the growth of the company is going to really require me to pass off, start to pass off some of those, either whether it be a contract employee or someone that's full-time eventually, being able to hand some of those responsibilities off and put those on someone else to help manage and shoulder that. So that way additional work can be taken on in different directions and really focused on the types of things that need to be done to grow the business, as opposed to sitting there putting together all the invoices. I texted one of my repeat customers. I'm like, hey, because I did a job for him the week before. I'm like, hey, I put my accounting hat on today. What net terms do you need on this?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where you're like, okay, and so switching gears, sometimes stuff can kind of fall off, or, I emailed you at 9:00 or 9:30 last night saying, hey, I finally got to cleaning my office for our conversation tomorrow. Yeah. And stuff like that. So I think being able to work towards that goal, and being able to let go of some of that too, vetting the right people, having the right people that that take care of things the way that you want them done. And we see that. I think a lot of people have seen that both in personal and professional lives, where people just won't let go, and they get themselves buried. And every time you're asking them, they're either upset or just angry people sometimes.
Right. Yeah, it's tough. No matter what role you're in, you're going to have preferred tasks that you like to do in your organization and your job. And it's natural to move towards those preferred tasks, the things that you want to do. But we got to have a system of accountability for ourselves, right? To have that accounting day, put that hat on, and take care of that. So what do you do? How do you keep yourself kind of disciplined in that way of doing the tasks that are maybe less favorable? I think this is something a lot of people struggle with. I'm sure they'll appreciate your insight.
I was going to say, I don't really have a system. I am the epitome of ADHD in that regard. But I have enough, because of sales, right? I think it's because of my time in the sales world, right? Most people don't want to interrupt someone's day and making a phone call. But you got to do it. If you don't catch any of the fish, you don't put the line out there for, right? You don't cast, you're not going to catch anything. So that's what waking up each day, realizing that, or after my third cup coffee, being like, okay, all right, it's time to do the stuff that maybe I don't want to do, or I got to bug someone for, and so. Yeah, constantly kind of reviewing your recent history of what the type of tasks you've done or taken care of. I mean, it's not unlike managing a house, right? Just taking care of your home, right? I don't have a chore list, but you got to do rough cleanings of things, regularly, a couple times a week, wipe down countertops. And then, maybe every month or 2 or 3 or whatever, depending on how much you use, you take everything off the countertops in the kitchen. You're like, everything's got to get wiped down. I think I just got to, needs to be just needs to be clean. So I think it kind of just follows that. And if you can get yourself into that mindset of, sometimes you just got to take everything off, wipe it all down. And that's how it is. That's how it is. Just being able to okay, you know what? I need to go through all my accounting stuff. Has everything gotten paid? Spending the time and finding the right applications, asking your peers what they're using for accounting. I love using Wave. It's called. It's a web application, allows for payments, invoicing. Stinks with it's terrible if you're going to be selling product, but it's great if you're doing services. So it's not great for creating POs and expenses and stuff like that, or POs specifically if you're going to be doing any reselling. But for everything else, so I just do those in Excel and just put those as a bill in there.
Yeah. So the way that I've seen people accomplish this at the, highest success rate, right, is preparation and schedule. And so I'm such a fan. I'm glad you brought up tech and applications, because finding the right tech for your business can seriously take so much off your plate, so much off your brain of trying to remember all those a million little things that are happening as an entrepreneur, and put them somewhere that's reliable, that's going to spit out a reminder to you, that is going to automate a bunch of processes.
And follow the reminders.
Yeah.
Follow your own reminders. I think that's we're so easy, quick to just dismiss. Take the time when you think of it, do it then. I think that, just generally my ADHD challenges growing up, that's it, right? You think about it, do it. When you see it, do it. Just get it done when you're seeing it. And sometimes that can be positive or negative. Most of the time it's positive from my experience.
Totally. Yeah. And one thing one of my clients does that I learned from him is he has a buffer day, which so shout out to Matt Hines. A buffer day is a really great way to catch up on all those things, do all those reminders that you swiped off of, when you were at a job or whatever. And everyone does this a little differently. I like to chunk mine out a little bit more throughout the week. But as a smaller company with a focus on growth, you're going to have more work before you have less. and just anything you can do to like make that easier for yourself, right? It totally helps. So I'm curious, you gave us a few ideas about applications. What is something that like people watching this show right now would think about, like, hey, that's an interesting use of 3D scanning, and maybe I should reach out to Chris?
Sure, thank you. I'd love to. So yeah, as you mentioned, there are just unlimited applications where I've seen 3D scanning used, and there's probably more that I don't even know about. I'm definitely not the end all be all of what people are using 3D scanning in, but the primary areas kind of break it down into, I think, about three different sections of what it's used for. Is going to be in the visual aspect. So anytime you need a digital asset or you need something in the real world to be three-dimensional, to move around it, you want an augmented reality experience or VR or a gaming asset, or even in movies, then scanning can be supportive in that, and help that process and speed that up oftentimes. So there's that visual aspect. So just pure taking from, they call it, digital twin, something along those lines, and that can mean a bunch of different things for different applications. The second is going to be, a reverse engineering, or in the construction world, it's called as-built. So what's there, and then I need an actual model of it. I need to be able to modify it, or I need that to be my starting point, or just a complete replication of what was there. But I need, the edges to be perfect. I don't just want a piece of scan data.
Yeah.
So you're actually going to be going through, you're going to be creating CAD and using the measurements and dimensions from the scan data to produce that. And then that can be used on the for modification or anything along those lines. And then the third and final is quality. And again, this is everything from manufacturing. So it can be used for if you're bringing in parts from another country or another factory. First article inspections, making sure it's meeting what you drew, how you designed it in your specs. It could be you're checking things along your manufacturing process. The traditional method of quality typically requires a very big interruption of the manufacturing process. You take the part, you go to your quality room, gets lined up with other parts, and other people are doing it. Scanning can kind of speed that up, produce a quick report, make sure that you're on track, and then get the part back into the queue, the production queue. So there's that aspect. Or in buildings, everything from concrete floor flatness, which normally is done by a guy with a stick, and he walks lines and rows on the floor to see what the up and down is. And that can take hours and days to get the report back by the end of it. Scanning, there's workflows for scanning the concrete while it's wet, or before it's cured. And so you can get that, you can fix it before your concrete people even leave the site. And that can be, hugely valuable. Understanding to make sure that the HVAC guy put his system in the right place. So when the plumber comes in, he knows ahead of time that this wasn't put in the right place. I need these extra pipes to get around it, or these extra fittings, whatever he needs. That can all be done in advance.
Awesome.
So those are the three primary, I think, kind of what it boils down to. You got visual, you've got the design piece, so taking the world, making it into a digital model, and then you've got the final piece of quality, making sure that the real world is right to what you designed it to, and if not, then how do you manage that challenge now?
Great.
So yeah, take that, whatever industry you're in, and kind of extrapolate it out. I always love to hear new ways and methods of people using this type of stuff, or what thoughts you have on how it could be applied.
Awesome. Well, I hope people can leave that in the comments as they see this, and let us know how people can reach you if they're curious about doing work.
Yeah, so website f3dscans.com is a good place to start. We've got I got my email Facebook.
There you go.
I think there's an Instagram link on there. I don't really use
Cool.
it.
And
I
we
need
can
to be
also
better
leave
about that.
I can put it in the comments. Too.
Oh, perfect. And then Chris W at f3dscans.com is my direct email.
Awesome.
Probably the easiest ways to get in touch with me through those methods.
Beautiful. Well, thanks so much for being here on Eye Openers today. Thanks for bearing with me as I clearly hadn't had enough coffee set up this morning. And
Lighting with a mind of its own.
yeah, well, and it's just so awesome to hear what's going on for you behind the scenes. You know, we're all used to seeing each other's websites, seeing the face, you know, on social media, but it's so great to have a real conversation. So thanks again for joining us, and goodbye to everyone who has joined us.